All right, so now we're moving on to the next segment, which I wanted to share with you here in the smaller boardroom, and that is we were going to take a look at issues that were occurring right now in our society, in our culture, in our politics and government, all these realms. We have things that pop up, and we always encourage people that as situations occur, we want to respond and address them through what we say is the lens of the pillar that is relevant to that issue. So what we're doing today is we're taking a look at the second pillar. The second pillar is that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. That is what this community at the National Leadership Briefing rallies around with the second pillar, is that we require, it's not a maybe, possibly, kind of, sorta, it's they must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. Those people who we elect to serve us in civil government. So when we choose someone and we support someone and they get into office and we have, they do what we want them to do, that's fantastic. But the reason we're looking at this particular issue today is, what do we do if it appears as though they're not respecting and defending our right of belief? And I'm speaking today about Bill 207, which is being discussed right now in Alberta. Bill 207 is a bill that recognizes the importance of allowing medical professionals to act according to their conscience. And if you remember back in the training that I just did during that conference, is I mentioned the fundamental freedoms that we have in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the very first fundamental freedom that is listed in our freedoms is the freedom of conscience and religion. So we thought it would be a slam dunk when Bill 207 was introduced to protect the conscience rights of medical professionals. And the people that were reviewing the bill were people that we supported during the election. And we thought, that's fantastic. They're just going to go in there. And this is a foundational principle that we all agree on, that Canadians' charter rights, conscience rights are protected. And we put them into office and they go to vote on this bill. And some of them actually voted it down. Well, the reason why that we're talking about that today is that we as a community, we remember, in the faith communities of Canada, we are a constituency among many. I always tell people, don't go lighting your hair on fire and running down Main Street telling everybody you're in charge, because you're not. You are a constituency among many. Your opinions and your views and values, they are in competition with other Canadians' views and values on various issues. So we have to act responsibly whenever we're interacting with other people who have other views on things. And in other words, we have to make sure that our arguments are foundationally strong and that they can compete. Now, I'm confident that they can. I am actually really excited, because I believe that the things that we believe to be true are tried, tested, and true over thousands of years. They're fundamental principles that produce positive health outcomes for Canadians. So I'm all for letting them compete. But what do we do when we set it all up? We support these politicians, we send them off, we put them in office, and then they appear to be working contrary to what it is they said they were going to do. Well, that's what happened just now recently with Bill 207 in committee in Alberta, and we had to decide as a community. We have to decide as a community how we're going to respond. Okay, so there's two different ways that we can do it. One thing we can do is when it looks like they vote against what we believe in after we've put them there, and they don't respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of conscience or religion, then what do? Our response. Well, our response could be, one, to just go in there and grab them by the shirt and drag them out into the street and put somebody new in office. That's definitely an option. You could just, at the very next electoral opportunity, you just throw them out on the street. But remember, that's only one of the choices, and that might be in contradiction to some of the things we believe. And remember, we're trying to build relationships with the people that we put into office. So if all of a sudden, after the very slightest hiccup in the work that they're doing, if we're threatening to go in there and drag them out into the street and throw them out of office, that's not very neighborly of us. We want to our very first course of action, I believe, and this is what I want to tell you today, is we should actually take the time to engage with that elected representative and find out what it was that were there reasons why they voted against the piece of legislation. Because I tell you, I was perplexed. I was very perplexed when Bill 207 had such challenges at the committee level, and where when people that we put in there as a community, we really felt like we had some influence during the election in Alberta, the faith community of Alberta, and that conscience rights were going to be protected and the second pillar was going to be advanced. And when they voted against it, we were perplexed. But we need to take that moment to go in there and to contact our members of the Legislative Assembly when they do things that we don't necessarily agree with. We need to remember we're trying to get into relationship with them, a real relationship with them. We're spending all this time wanting to build that relationship so that we can have good communication and so that we can have influence in the decisions of government. We want to take that extra step and do that. So that's what I'm encouraging you to do. If you are in Alberta, we're going to look at that issue of them voting against us on the second pillar issue. We're going to take a look at that, and we're going to encourage you to go in Alberta, and you're going to contact the MLAs that we're going to provide you the names of after the briefing today. We want you to contact their offices, and we want you to ask them and say, you know what, it looks like you voted against something that's really important to me. Can you explain to me why? And then when you get that information back from them, and by the way, I've contacted 4 of the 4 I wanted to talk to. I contacted them. 2 of them got back to me so far, and I am going to share in the future their responses to me. However, I want you to actually contact them yourself. And so I'm going to give you their contact information, but find that out. And then if they violated your trust, then remember, you got to ask yourself, it took us a long time to get that person in there to vote them in. Should we hold on to them and work with them and try and bring them around to our way of thinking? Okay, so that's the first one that I want to tell you about today. Bill 207 for our participants in Alberta or any other time across the nation that you believe that an elected person has violated your trust. We are encouraging you to take that step of making sure that you know exactly why they actually voted the way they did before you light your hair on fire and run down Main Street, okay? Good advice. But now we're gonna move over to the big boardroom because I am going to introduce to you the new training template that I've been promising you for the last month. I'm gonna be introducing it to you, and we're gonna talk about authority in Canada and how we can raise our level of authority. But first we have to understand how authority works. So let's go over to the boardroom now and introduce the new template to you.